Hello everyone and welcome back to What is Type. In today's video, I'm doing something very different. I'm going to talk about the Gawler line. Yes, the entire Gawler line. I will cover everything about it. Its history, its legacy, its branch lines, its rolling stock, its upgrades, its struggles, its future, and everything in between. So sit back and let's dive right into it, shall we? The Gawler Line, also known as the Gawler Central Line, is a suburban commuter railway line in the city of Adelaide, South Australia. The Gawler Line is the most frequent and heavily patronized line in the Adelaide rail network. It is also the only line to have no other interchange with any other line except at Adelaide railway station, where you can change for the Seaford, Flinders, Belair, Outer Harbour, Port Dock, and Grange lines. And yes, while the line terminates at Gawler Central railway station, it is known as the Gawler Line because Gawler Central is also in the town of Gawler, if that makes sense. The line was opened in 1857 from Adelaide to Gawler. It was extended to Kapunda in 1860, and from there, several other country railway lines opened from Gawler to country towns of Angaston, Truro, Morgan, Robertstown, Stockville, Peterborough, Tarroi, Spalding, Port Wakefield, Munta, Wallaroo, Baskerville, Brinkworth, Snowtown, and a bunch of other places like Port Pirie, Corn, Hawker, Georgetown, Gladstone, Port Augusta. The railway has basically just opened up to they just spread it across states and regions. These lines help the economy and agriculture of rural South Australia to expand it and were a lifeline for most northern towns. However, following the rise in car ownership in the 1960s onwards and trucks, those lines were gradually closed down. The last passenger train ran beyond Gawler in 2004, and the last actual train ran beyond Gawler in 2014. Along with lines extending from Gawler itself, the line itself had a couple of branch lines. There were branch lines to Penfield, General Motors Holden Elizabeth Car Factory, the Port Augusta line. Note, for the Port Augusta line, it's only the passenger services, since passenger trains also ran on the line. Regular passenger trains, I mean. They ceased in 1990, but freight trains are still continuing. The Dry Creek to Port Dock line, for the Port Dock line, is also the same reason as the Augusta line. It only closed for passengers, but it still remains open for freight trains. As with the same reason for the country lines, all branch lines except the Port Augusta and Port Dock branches closed entirely by 1995. Steam engines ran on the line until the red hand rail cars came in the 1950s. Until 1996, a mix of red hand rail cars, Brill rail cars, a couple of Steam Ranger train tours, Bluebird rail cars used the line, and the 2000 class jumbos from 1980 and the 3000 class rail cars from 1987. From 1995 onwards, it was the jumbos and the 3000 class rail cars which used the line, with the occasional Bluebird Barossa wine train from 1997. The Barossa wine train ended in 2003. From 2003 to 2015, it was the 3000 class rail cars and the 2000 class jumbo rail cars. From 2015 to 2023, it was the 3000 class rail cars. 4000 class electric train services began from 2022. And in December 2023, when the last 4000 class rail car got delivered, which was 4034, it effectively replaced the 3000 class rail cars serving Adelaide's north. So it was an honor, 3000 class rail cars. Freight trains on the line were a common occurrence as well. Until 2007, grain trains used the line from the mid-north regions as far as Roseworthy and Hamley Bridge and Balaclava. The last freight train service on the line Gawler line was the Penrice stone train, the Stony, which operated to the Penrice quarry until it ceased operating in June 2014. As for the line's operators, the South Australian Railways operated the line until 1978, when it was given to the State Transport Authority, with Australian National Railways Commission operating the country services on the line until 1990. Trans-Adelaide took over the line's operations in 1995. Since 2010, the line has been operated by the Adelaide Metro. From 1996 to 2014, Genesee and Wyoming Railroad operated freight trains on the line, past Gawler to the Barossa and Mid-North, as I mentioned earlier, the grain trains, the Penrice stone train and stuff. In 2008, the state government announced a plan to rebuild the Gawler line in preparation for it to be electrified with the federal government, also to provide funding. The old tracks were dismantled, and the track bed sleepers and track was renewed. Dual gauge sleepers were laid to allow for a potential future conversion to standard gauge if required. The line was closed between North Adelaide and Mawson Lakes for up to 4 months, from June in 2010 for the works to be performed, and between Mawson Lakes and Gawler Central stations for 7 months, from September 2011. Following the withdrawal of the federal government funding by the then newly elected Abbott Liberal National Government, the electrification was postponed in October 2013. In February 2011, a new Adelaide Metro train railcar depot opened to the east of Dry Creek Station to replace the facility behind the new Royal Adelaide Hospital site and the Adelaide railway station. The old depot was completely dismantled, and the new Royal Adelaide Hospital opened at that site. The depot is currently a major maintenance and refueling facility for the train fleet, including diesels, and electric trains are also kept there, along with at Seaford Meadows and Belair and stuff. The depot has a capacity of storing up to 70 rail cars with over 11 kilometers of track. The depot has been designed to allow future conversion to support. The depot was designed to allow future conversion to support the electric rolling stock, which happened in 2022. As you know, to facilitate the work on the Torrance Rail Junction in 2017 at Bowden, the Gawler line was closed between Adelaide and Mawson Lakes from the 1st of October to the 15th of October and 18th of November to 5 December in 2017. And following a decade of on again and off again talks, the electrification of the Gawler line was announced in 2018. The original plan was to have a stage 1 electrification to Salisbury with works originally anticipated to commence in 2018. This would have meant that electric trains went as far as Salisbury, with diesel trains continuing to Gawler Central. Though this plan was replaced in favor of a full electrification. There was also a potential plan for electrification as far as Elizabeth, like Salisbury, but the plan was shelved to allow a full electrification. For the original plan, a $220 million grant was allowed, but it was replaced for the stage 2 electrification to be combined with the stage 1 electrification to allow for a full electrification. For the remainder of the line to proceed, the works started in November 2019 with a completion anticipation date in 2021. The line was contrary to the Seaford line electrification, which saw the line closed for 11 months. From October 2020 onward, main construction on the Gawler line was spread out across a rolling schedule of partial and full line closures across 12 months in 2020. Early works before October 2020 was spread across a smaller closures, typically at nights and on weekends. The entire line closed in December 2020. It was intended to reopen in November 2021, but it was delayed due to the worldwide coronavirus COVID-19 lockdown pandemic in July. The line was expected to reopen around 30 April 2022, but following the state election in March, reopening was actually pushed back to the end of June in 2021, and the line finally reopened on the 12th of June 2022. So that was a win. In June 2021, the Australian and South Australian governments announced that the railroad crossing at Torrens Road would be removed at a cost of $196 million. The Torrens Road level crossing was previously identified as one of the most high-risk level crossings in Adelaide, in part to it being both a passenger rail and a freight rail crossing, cause the Gawler line shares tracks with the ARTC line. From Islington to Adelaide, it shares it with the Adelaide to Melbourne railway line, Adelaide to Wolseley railway line, and from towards the northern direction, it shares it with the Adelaide to Port Augusta railway line up until Salisbury. Earlier in 2020, an investigation was launched after a freight train passed through the level crossing without activating the crossing boom gates. In 2023, the Torrens Road overpass was officially opened. As part of the project, a new public park was constructed underneath the overpass, and the adjacent Ovingham railway station was completely rebuilt. The line runs from Adelaide railway station north via Prospect, Mawson Lakes, Salisbury, Elizabeth and Smithfield to the town of Gawler on the outer northern metropolitan fringes of Adelaide. The line is 42.2 kilometers, 26.2 miles in length, and is the longest of all Adelaide suburban railway lines. All suburban passenger train services are operated by Adelaide Metro. In April 2008, new timetables were introduced on the Gawler line in an effort to boost efficiency. The shorter secondary services that terminated at Dry Creek, which originally replaced the branch line services on the original Northfield line, which closed back in 1987, and Salisbury, were withdrawn, and new limited express services were introduced in. A high-frequency station policy was adopted. Nearly all services either start or terminate their journey at Gawler or Gawler Central stations, apart from a morning peak express service that begins its journey at Salisbury. Under this policy, high-frequency stations, which are Islington, Mawson Lakes, Parafield, Salisbury, Elizabeth, Smithfield, Tamburlaine, and Gawler, have services every 15 minutes from Monday to Friday. All other stations have a 30-minute service obtained by every other service skipping that station. This is in addition to the several peak hour express services that stop at selected high frequency stations. On weekends and public holidays, services operate with a 30-minute frequency at all stations, with the exception of stations between Dry Creek and Adelaide, which are at an hourly scheduled instead. Currently, as of today, all the railway lines past Gawler are closed. However, on 16th March 2025, South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas announced that the corridor of the old Kapunda railway line has been preserved for a possible future extension of the Gawler line to Roseworthy, along with a branch line to Concordia via the disused Broza Valley railway line. I hope this turns true because there are few housing developments happening in those areas and they will very likely require a transport option like a railway line. In conclusion, the overall Gawler line has survived closures, political delays, reconstruction, electrification struggles, and changing technologies. From 1857 to today, this line has shaped Northern Adelaide more than any other piece of transport infrastructure. It will be exciting to see what its future looks like with any train fleet or railway extensions. This has been the full history, overview, and future of the Gawler line. If you enjoyed this deep dive, give the video a thumbs up, and if you want more South Australian little content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Everyone's a